So, Race, I don't ask you the question I asked Tim Kaine towards the end there. It is kind of shocking in a way that despite all of the baggage that Donald Trump carries, he's tied with Joe Biden right now.
Yeah, I mean, George, when I looked at that recent poll, the Wall Street Journal, I said, oh, this could keep me up at night. Look, the problem is, and the biggest challenge we face is Democrats. I say we because I'm a Democrat, is that young voters, young black and Latino voters, they're not ready to come back to the party. They're not even looking at the so-called messaging that's being sent to them about the economy, about climate change, about student debt relief. They are worried about their future, and right now they're looking for a leader who represents their values and their vision. And I think the president's campaign is going to have to really, go deep and go hard to motivate those voters to come back within the Democratic Party coalition, because without them, it is a tight race, and it's going to come down to 4 states.
And Susan Page, with every passing month, with every new indictment, Donald Trump seems to be consolidating his control over the Republican Party.
This Wall Street Journal poll, after 91 criminal counts against the president, which only strengthened his position, so I don't know why we think that a conviction on one of these counts or more would fundamentally change the fact that Trump supporters have baked into the cake the fact that he has these legal troubles. In the Wall Street Journal poll, if you added the third-party candidates, Trump leads narrowly over Biden. That is the situation we find at this point.
And maybe it won't change anything, Reihan Salam, but Republicans almost unanimously now on that stage several days ago would vote for a convicted felon. Did you ever think you'd see the day?
Well, the truth is that we are in a very polarized moment, and when you're looking at the Republican Party, it is strikingly unified. If you look at the most conservative voters in the party, they back the former president disproportionately. If you look at more moderate voters, female Republican primary voters, he just really has a lock on both wings of the party, so to speak, and that's something that any rival has to appreciate it and respect.
So what does the rival do, though? Right now, it seems most of them are treating the former president with kid gloves. At some point, is one of the rivals going to have to go after him directly?
Well, it looks as though his rivals are hoping that he's somehow taken off the board. They're relying on some intervention, perhaps the prospect of the lawsuits proving so burdensome that he decides to step aside. There doesn't appear to be anyone who wants to frontally attack him, with the exception of Governor Christie.
I guess that leads to the other question, Heidi, is how is this legal system process going to play out, and will any of these trials kind of actually come to trial before the voters have basically made up their mind, at least on the Republican side?
They may well, but if you dig deeper into that Wall Street Journal poll, you find that 78% of Republican voters say that he was justified to try and turn over the election. So it's not going to necessarily matter, even if he is convicted. And there's nothing in the Constitution that says even if he's convicted and goes to jail, that he can't run a campaign from a jail cell under the worst circumstances. So yes, it does look like we're not in 2016 anymore. We are seeing these mini boomlets like in 2016 of other Republican challengers.
But nobody's got
But they're tiny. They're tiny. It's like 30% spread between those candidates and between Trump. And you don't see anything in the underlying Democratic and the crosstabs to show that this is going to change anytime soon, and that there's nothing that could come out of a conviction that would potentially change it.
Susan Page, one of the hopes of some of the other Republican candidates is that Donald Trump is, at least in some respects, has somewhat softer support in the early states of Iowa and New Hampshire.
Yeah, and that's the formula for defeating him, or at least shaking things up in the Republican way. Somebody else win Iowa, somebody else win New Hampshire. Prompt Republican voters to look at some of their other options. But his lead, his lead is somewhat less in Iowa and New Hampshire. It's still double digits. It is still pretty formidable. Democrats do have 2 hopes, though, I think. One is the economy's doing pretty well. Inflation has come down. Maybe that starts to sink in with voters. The other is the issue of abortion that has been so powerful in the midterm elections and could prove to be that again with those suburban swing women voters
Well, that's the question down in Brazil. What happens when it actually comes to a general election? There is a pattern in the last couple of elections where the Democrats are winning the close races.
Well, because I think the Democrats understand that you can beat the superficial, what we're seeing on the Republican side, with substance, and the substance, the policies, the practices of the Biden-Harris administration, improving people's lives. Look, this past week, This movement to reduce prescription drug prices, that's going to help Democrats. But I have to say something, because, George, I'm old enough to say this. I've seen two movements outside of the social justice movements in my life on the political side. One was the Reagan movement. Reagan had a hold on his base, the country at large. They saw him as someone who was willing to stand up for American values, whatever that might have meant. Now, I thought it was reactionary. The other movement I saw was Barack Obama, hope and change. That galvanized the American people. I've never seen anything like this with Donald Trump. I mean, what doesn't kill you make you stronger? I mean, being convicted, being indicted, that's making him stronger. Raising $10 million, using an ugly mugshot to raise money. This is a movement. And anyone who thinks that you can apply the old political rules to trying to defeat this candidate based on he's scary, he's ugly, whatever you might want to call him, this is a movement. And we have to respect the fact that it's a movement.